This week marks 5 years since a Santa Fe high school student shot more than 20 people, killing 8 fellow students and 2 teachers. On May 18th, 2018, life was forever changed for the families of the victims, for the survivors, and for the Santa Fe community. We appreciate you taking the time to reflect on these past 5 years. I'm KHOU 11 digital anchor Brandy Smith. It was a Friday, just 2 weeks before the end of school, when prosecutors say Dimitrios Pogorchis walked into the high school he attended and opened fire. We're not going to focus on him during this special. If you want to see more of our reporting about the suspect, you can find it at khou.com/Santa Fe. We will highlight the victims' families' push for justice, though. These are the faces of the 10 victims of the Santa Fe shooting. They ranged in age from 14 to 64, and in the days after the shooting, Reka Mudaraj learned more about each of them.
Family says 15-year-old Christian Riley Garcia loved the outdoors, especially night fishing trips to Crosby. He also loved to help, so it's no surprise, his pastor says, the teen is emerging from this tragedy is one of several heroes.
He was holding the door shut in the art hallway rooms, and he was trying to protect some other kids that were in there, and some of them lost their life also. That the perpetrator shot through the door and killed him and killed a couple of the other students, while yet a couple of them did escape out a back corridor somehow because he held the door long enough that gave them some time.
17-year-old Christopher Jake Stone was known as a football player with a lot of heart, and according to his older sisters, being a brother was the job he did best.
We were told by a student that was with him that Chris was trying to escape the room, didn't succeed, but he did go into a closet with other kids, and he was the one to help hold the door closed, and he did shoot through the door, and it hit my brother, the boy that was telling us. He stayed and he prayed with him, so my brother wasn't alone, and I will always be grateful for that. And many kids are saying that if it weren't for Chris, the other kids in the room probably would have been down as well.
On Sunday, around 2,000 people came to a funeral for a girl they had never met. Exchange student Sabika Sheikh was scheduled to go back home to Karachi, Pakistan in 2 weeks. Her host family praised the 18-year-old.
I always told her, Sabika, you have a warrior's heart. She wanted to be a businesswoman. She said she wanted to impact the world. And I think she's done that.
Glenda Ann Perkins, a grandmother, was a substitute teacher at Santa Fe High School. Her family posted on Facebook thanking law enforcement officers for their bravery. They also say Perkins died trying to protect her students. Shanna Fisher's parents are grief-stricken, trying to come to grips with why the shooter targeted their 16-year-old daughter.
I would like to look at him in the eyes and ask him why. Why would he go in there and kill such a beautiful kid? She was the first one he killed.
They describe Shanna as smart, responsible, and close to her grandparents, and whose favorite subject was art. It was also Jared Conard Black's favorite subject as well. He had recently turned 17 and would celebrate his birthday this weekend. Now his family is planning his funeral.
My nephew Jared really liked comic books, and he liked to draw his own artwork, and he loved playing with Legos. He was just still a big giant kid at heart.
Kimberly Vaughn's mother agonized for hours before eventually learning her daughter was one of the 10 victims. On Facebook, she thanked everyone for their prayers and well wishes. She didn't have to work, but Cynthia Tisdale loved children so much she happily substituted at Santa Fe High School, often helping with special needs students. Attorney Kathleen McCumber read a statement on behalf of her family.
To know my mom was to know a person who lived to help those in need. We loved our mother very much. Grammy, you will be missed.
Tisdale leaves behind her husband of more than 45 years, 3 children, and 8 grandchildren. She would have been 64 years old next week. 15-year-old Aaron Kyle McLeod was a freshman and known for his sense of humor.
And to sit right next to him, not be there's gonna be hard for all of us.
15-year-old Angelique Ramirez was compassionate and caring, according to a family friend who wrote on a GoFundMe page for the teen.
One law enforcement officer who rushed to the scene quickly learned his mother was one of the victims. Larry Seward shares the son's words.
Cynthia Tisdale was 63 and full-time caregiver to husband Reese. She hardly needed another job, but went every day to Santa Fe High School substitute teaching special needs children. In a letter to honor her, son Reese Jr. told us, "To know my mom was to know a person who lived to help those in need." During Friday's shooting, Reese Jr., a League City police detective, was 10 minutes away at home, off duty, and alarmed. Because it was Friday, my daughter had late arrival and was thankfully still home, he said. Still, he rushed over to help. By then, other officers had the shooter cornered in the art room. Then Detective Tisdale's phone rang. It was Dad, worried. Cynthia, the wife who took care of him every day for 46 years, did not answer her phone. Their son told us, "I knew that 2 female teachers had been killed along with several students. Not long thereafter, I determined that one of the teachers was probably my mother. It was very hard to go from assisting others to being horribly affected by this tragic event." Her family has few words, none they could say on camera, only a letter written to honor Tisdale's life and memory.
The loss of those 10 lives left a gaping hole in the Santa Fe community. Kevin Reese introduced us to neighbors who turned to each other for comfort and to honor the victims.
In a grass field behind the biggest bank in Santa Fe, they sang 2 verses of Amazing Grace and embraced each other when the words in the verses just weren't big enough to explain the grief they all feel.
No, it's our town.
Moms like Tina Young openly grieved for the victims
To share hope.
and for her distraught daughter.
I had friends that went to the school, and I've only heard from like 5 of them.
Who lost friends in the senseless rampage this morning.
We're just going to take it day by day and cry it out and just... That's all, man.
And at the back of the crowd,
there was a lot of blood, a lot of glass.
We met 15-year-old Abel San Miguel, a freshman with a bandage on his leg, a scar from a bullet that grazed his back.
Kyle and Chris, they were in the room with me.
Far too vivid memories of watching his friends get gunned down in the Santa Fe High School art class. Right next to him this morning.
He just started firing at the door and then like the little window that was on the door.
He says he hid behind the door when the gunman broke through and trained the shotgun at his friends.
When he went to shoot Kyle, he like yelled surprise and then started firing.
That's all, he said. That's all the survivors know. God bless you. And now Santa Fe has become yet another grieving American town that wants yet another gunman. To explain why.
I really didn't know him until all this happened. I just can't believe how wicked he is to do this to innocent people.
That vigil and those that followed were examples of how, in its darkest hour, Santa Fe found hope. Melissa Correa attended church services where prayers poured in for the shooting victims and survivors.
Where are the signs? Which way should I go?
How you doing? You feeling okay?
But now I don't know.
2 days later, a hug still goes a long way. Texas Governor Greg Abbott among the packed congregation of Arcadia First Baptist Church. It's the first Sunday since 10 people were killed and 13 others hurt.
It's still hard to even think about. I'm still speechless about it. It's just hard. You know, I lost my best friend. It's just...
He's talking about Kyle McLeod.
To sit right next to him, not be there, to me hard.
Jonathan Fogel should have been in class with his friend Friday when a gunman went in and shot up the room. But Jonathan, a freshman, had finished testing and was not at school. His mom considers it divine intervention.
He didn't share it with me, and I was just so thankful that he wasn't there.
Honestly, just scary, like thinking that you're someone that you go to school with every day can just show up to school and do this.
Did you know this kid?
I played football with him every day at practice. I would go up against him.
In his graduation gown, Jacob McDonald was at church for the annual Senior Sunday. The church had planned to pray for the Santa Fe graduating class.
It's just hard to think that everyone who lost their life would not be able to get this opportunity.
Jacob McDonald, or as I affectionately call him, Biggie.
At 6'4", Jacob McDonald was built for football. He'll go off to East Texas Baptist to play college ball. But at 18 years old, Jacob wasn't ready.
Just to think that someone that you wouldn't suspect would do this, that means anyone that you don't suspect can also do something like this. It's just a scary thing to think about.
Tonight, all he can do is offer up his fear and lean on his faith.
I was just praying that any family that was affected by this that God will put their hand over their shoulders and just like let them heal.
Separated by a county line, Santa Fe and Alvin are connected in every other way. People from there say the communities are just one big family, and when your family's hurting, you help. Vanessa Croy showed us how Alvin neighbors stepped up.
You said 4, right?
Just down the road from Santa Fe High School, people in Alvin are stepping up to help their neighbors.
We're all family. It's a community. We're always here for each other, always have been.
They're holding a barbecue fundraiser at Cattleman's Western Wear to support the victims of the school shooting.
We understand there's going to be a lot of financial obligations on the parents and everything else, so we're trying to help lighten the load as much as possible.
One of those victims they know well.
Because he's a very good person, and I don't know what I would do if anything happened to him.
Clayton Horn was shot and badly injured in the shooting that killed 8 of his classmates and 2 of his teachers. The high school senior has worked at the store for 2 years.
He's just got a big heart.
And they want to do all they can.
When you've grown up here, you pretty well know everybody, and it's just in your heart to help.
For Clayton and for the Santa Fe community that they say is part of one big family.
Just amazing to see the close-knit bond that has happened. It's beautiful. It lets you know there's love in the world.
Those events happened in the days following the shooting, but what about after? After the victims had been laid to rest, after school started again in the fall? What about a year after? That's when Mia Gradney sat down with the principal of Santa Fe High School to talk about that tragic day and all of the ones that came after.
How often do you think about that day?
Well, to be honest with you, a lot. And I think most of the people who work here and go here in the community do often. When you walk in the door, there's reminders of it.
What have been the most difficult days?
First few days of school were rough. Then we got into our routines and started realizing that we can make it through. First fire drill, obviously, that would have been a tough day. That was a tough day. Some of the activities that maybe some of the kids were in, for instance, we had a football player, so first football game, things like that would come up all through the year. And then now, that 1 year marker date is coming up, and so.
Right after something like this happens, you ask yourself why. Have you asked why?
I do know why I'm here, and I'm here to help our kids get through this. That's a big focus for me, and I'm very driven to do that. And so, that I do know that, but sometimes I don't know why bad things happen to good people. I wish I did have that answer. So.
In the wake of the shooting, 4 young women with a lot of heart decided they wanted to make a difference. Marcelino Benito introduced us to the former Santa Fe students who started a nonprofit to help others.
Difficult memories from that dark day in Santa Fe still pain former students like Grace Johnson.
Shots were being fired in the hallway right next to me. We all hid in an attic space that was probably only about 50 feet away from where unfortunately 10 people lost their lives.
In the years since, they felt hurt, guilt, and unbelievable responsibility.
I always want to honor their memory in everything that I do, and so it is a big inspiration to me.
It's why days after the shooting, Annabelle O'Day, a former Santa Fe High senior, knew something needed to be done.
This gunman, he came in and he changed our lives, and he destroyed some of them. And you can't go back and change what happened, but you are in control of how you react to it.
Their reaction is helping change lives. Annabelle, Grace, Madison McCaskill, and Caitlin Richards together run Hearts United for Kindness, a nonprofit focused on mental health awareness and kindness.
Let's do something that will bring people together, because that's what we needed in that time. I feel like that's what society needs.
Together with community partners like the Houston Dynamo, Hearts United raised nearly $30,000 and awarded more than $20,000 in scholarships and grants to seniors and survivors of the shooting.
We are definitely making progress of lifting the stigma around mental health.
They're also providing resources for those suffering from PTSD. Their message resonates because they were inside Santa Fe High the day of the shooting.
I hope to be able to go to other communities after something like this happens and help them, and be able to let them know that you have support from other people, other survivors.
Their work in the aftermath of the shooting has earned them recognition from a Houston hero.
I'm inspired by you.
J.J. Watt surprised the girls when he presented them with the 2019 Sportsmanship Award at the Houston Sports Awards this year, a testament to their dedication and fight to make Santa Fe and the world a better, kinder place.
So much happens after that shooting that originally your town will come together and then they will divide. And it's up to you to figure out how to bring them back together.
For these 4 girls, kindness was the only answer. And thanks to them, Santa Fe is stronger than ever before.
You've heard it again and again, how much the memories of the victims lingered with those who survived. Jason Miles showed us how those memories are taking root.
Students shoveled the last bit of soil on the first of 10 live oaks to be planted outside Santa Fe High School.
Shayna Fisher.
After the names of each victim were read aloud.
Christian Riley Garcia.
Each family receiving yellow roses amid the roster of loved ones lost.
We have been incredibly resilient and fierce in the midst of grief and anguish, and I am proud of how far we have come.
10th grader Jade Gillard witnessed the shooting inside the school and was in the art classroom where most of the violence occurred.
We're like these trees, big and small. We withstand the storms and gradually get stronger each and every day.
Eventually, 10 oak trees will be planted for 8 students and 2 teachers who died at the school, while 13 others will honor those injured.
This area will serve as a place of solitude and reflection. Classes will be able to meet out here, enjoy the shade, and remember.
Remembrance and resilience were themes during Friday classes.
Aaron Kyle McLeod.
Recovery will be the focus moving forward indefinitely.
A new memorial called the Unfillable Chair was unveiled 3 years after the shooting. Designed by current and former students who were there on May 18th, 2018, it honors the 8 students and 2 teachers whose lives were lost. 4 years after the shooting, one of the victims' families turned their grief into purpose. Grace White took us to Still Waters.
In the peace and quiet of Still Waters.
It's been great for us. We needed it.
The Tisdale family found a new dream.
Just a beautiful space.
And healing.
For me, it was a way to help her and our children. Bad things happen, tragedy comes in life, but you always have to move forward.
In 2018, they lost his mother, Cynthia Tisdale, a substitute teacher, in the Santa Fe High School shooting.
It's impacted our life, and it will forever. We will never ever forget that day.
She was a teacher for 19 years. He was in law enforcement for 25, and they knew they needed a change.
We didn't know anything about the wedding business, and we just decided to go for it.
Jennifer and Reese Tisdale bought a piece of property, built a banquet hall, open-air chapel, and started booking brides.
I feel like I have about 156 daughters right now because they all text, call, email all the time.
And never looked back.
I think that our story has, helped a lot of people. I hope it has. I hope that we've been inspirational to some people.
It wasn't just the loss of Grammy that Tisdales had to overcome. They also lost Grammy's husband, Poppy, 5 months later, and decided they would dedicate their new dream to their memory.
When we decided to do this, one of the big things was the name.
And for inspiration, Reese thought about his dad, a former Baptist minister.
We had the little lake back there and the bayou here, and I said, he leadeth me beside the still waters. So I said, well, why not use still waters?
The psalm hangs above the entrance, a gift from a bride.
That's the kind of thing that makes this job so great,
A reminder that every time they book a wedding,
But it is hard too, because we do have to tell the story.
a chance after the worst day of their life,
It's so hard to not just be angry and resentful.
to be there for someone's best.
It's people's lives and their future, and it's just a great place to be, good atmosphere.
Grace White, KHOU 11 News.
Even as many of these families try to push past the grief, they're faced with a brutal reality. The then student accused of ending 10 lives still hasn't gone to trial. He was declared incompetent to stand trial and has been in a state psychiatric hospital in North Texas since 2019. In March 2023, a judge ordered an independent review of the accused shooter's mental competency. But his attorneys say that move violates state law because their client's condition is the same and a required waiting period after the last ruling hasn't passed.
Sign this same exact order, same exact expert, same everything on May 3rd, I don't have a problem.
That's 91 days from the last.
That's 91 days from the last determination, correct.
The outside expert will have 30 days to submit his report. And during that hearing, the judge said he wanted to discuss moving any trial back to Galveston County. But in another setback for the case, that judge got replaced.
Every time we go to court, it's just like another blow. The defense always wins their arguments, and we're always, feel like we're chasing our tail, that we're ever going to get anywhere in this case.
The case is now moving to Judge Lonnie Cox Court, but there's no new court date set as we're recording this. The civil case has certainly advanced much more quickly. This February, some Santa Fe families settled a lawsuit with an online dealer that they say sold the shooter his ammunition. Adam Bennett talked to a legal expert about the settlement's implications.
Nearly 5 years after 10 people were killed at Santa Fe High School, a partial resolution in the civil case filed by their loved ones.
I think this is a great result for the families.
Carmen Rowe is KHOU 11's legal analyst.
It sends a message to the community that we're going to hold not just sellers of guns, but sellers of ammunition accountable for the deadly result that we see every day on the news.
Rowe believes that message could raise the standard across the board for ammunition sales, especially online.
I also think it could likely lead to legislation, either state or federal legislation, that will change the way that these companies are permitted to sell guns and ammunition, particularly online when they're not verifying who they're selling to and the age of the buyer.
A civil lawsuit against the accused shooter's parents is still pending. The suit alleges they were negligent in storing the guns used in the shooting. The families of the Santa Fe shooting victims were understandably frustrated when information they'd been fighting for instead got leaked to a documentary filmmaker.
How did this whole situation begin?
We were notified by the district attorney's office that there was a potential leak of information.
John Kennard is Jared Black's uncle. Jared was one of the 10 killed at Santa Fe.
It's insulting. We've been asking for this information for 3 years.
Information they learned was now in the hands of a documentary filmmaker.
Information regarding the nature of the injuries and named the people, where they were shot, where their bodies were.
The documentary is a transparent look at what happened on May 18, 2018 inside Santa Fe High School.
Charlie Min is the director of the Kids of Santa Fe.
I reached out to the medical examiner's office because I had no information about any autopsy reports, no information about how many times each person was shot and what part of their body.
And Min says it's information the medical examiner's office freely gave up, but it had been withheld from the families to not taint the trial against the accused shooter.
The fact that a stranger was given confidential information that the families have been denied is rather insulting.
This uncle now starting an online petition calling for the medical examiner, Aaron Barnhart, to resign. He's also, since learning about the leak, filed open records requests for the medical examiner's report, but has been denied.
I've felt that the only thing we could do is publicly call for the resignation of the medical examiner. We believe that the breach of information was so egregious, not only emotionally to the families, but possibly potentially jeopardizing the future prosecution.
The medical examiner told Grace she had no comment, and while the Galveston County District Attorney admitted the information should not have been released, he said he stands by the ME. The documentary, The Kids of Santa Fe, is now streaming. The 88th Texas Legislature addressed that, passing SB 435. The bipartisan bill allows crime victims' families to view autopsy reports of their loved ones. It also lets families and any surviving victims view video evidence of a deadly crime. Those families would have to sign a non-disclosure agreement first, though. The Santa Fe shooting added to concerns about school safety and led to a call for action. Texas politicians promised to make schools safer. And in June 2019, Governor Greg Abbott signed a series of bills into law. Adam Bennett broke them down for us.
Fort Bend ISD is one of several local districts that have upgraded their safety features on campuses in recent years. Things like metal detectors, new designs, bullet-resistant glass. But some lawmakers and even educators say helping the students already on campus could make the biggest difference. After the Santa Fe school shootings, the calls for action from Santa Fe students,
gun safety could be one of the changes that could save your children's lives.
And others across the state
I think we just need one way in, one way out.
led to this moment at the Capitol this morning.
Making schools safer is now law in the state of Texas.
Governor Greg Abbott signed 3 school safety bills into law. Alongside him, 2 state lawmakers representing Santa Fe.
All the people back home in Santa Fe, we could not have done this alone. This was a team effort.
Senate Bill 11 raises school safety standards, requires training, sets up threat assessment teams, and boosts mental health resources. It comes with $100 million to immediately harden schools, plus $110 million from the state every 2 years. House Bill 1387 lifts the cap on the number of school marshals per campus. Finally, House Bill 18 boosts mental health training for teachers and hires more counselors.
We know that the common denominator amongst all of these horrific crimes is mental health.
Governor Abbott says mental health was the top concern he heard during his safety roundtable sessions immediately after the Santa Fe shooting.
The discussions that took place in this room that led to the passage of bills that have now led to laws.
In Fort Bend County,
So we need those counselors, we need extra supports in the classroom. And
Teachers
so we
Union
were very
President Carrie
happy with
Waschenfelder
both.
supports 2 of the bills.
We really need this because right now teachers don't know how to deal with some of these problems. They're not trained. They're not mental health workers.
Now, Waschenfelder does not support the school marshal expansion bill because she thinks guns do not belong in the classroom. We also checked in with the head of Houston's Teachers Union. He says that more mental health resources are a good thing, not only for keeping students safer, but also just helping them with everyday challenges. Reporting from Sugar Land, Adam Bennett, KHOU 11 News.
In 2022, Grace White wanted to find out what the school districts did with the money set aside by the legislature. Here's what she learned.
Making schools safer is now law in the state of Texas.
The grant provided $100 million to harden schools. According to data from TEA, the top 3 Houston area school districts to receive those funds, Houston ISD at $3.3 million, Cyfair ISD at $1.8, and Katy ISD at $1.3.
What's the #1 question you get asked from parents?
What can we do to make sure our students are safe?
HISD Police Chief Pedro Lopez Jr. talked with us about the security upgrades the school district has made and showed us one of HISD's biggest ones. Upgrading security systems and the servers that store all the videos.
That's very important because that helps us secure the campuses, and if a crime occurs, it helps us identify persons who are committing crimes on our campuses.
HISD spent all its money, but 3 years later, not every district has. KHOU 11 Investigates found the top 3 with money left to spend. Spring Branch ISD with $126,000, 22.5% of its total grant. Aldine ISD was $75,000, that's 7%, and Katy at $83,000 at 6%. Spring Branch ISD says COVID slowed their spending down. Its unused funds were for an integrated security system. Due to issues arising from the pandemic, the contractor chosen for this project was not able to complete the work. Aldine and Katy ISDs both told KHOU they plan to use the remaining funds, but did not specifically say why the money was not spent.
The legislature now says they're going to extend the deadline to give school districts until next summer to spend the money. Grace White, KHOU 11 News.
The TEA ended up extending the grant application deadline until June 15th, 2023. That money can be used to install vehicle barriers, metal detectors at school entrances, exterior doors with push bars, two-way radio systems, security fencing, door locking systems, systems that monitor and record exits, entrances, and hallways, a school-wide active shooter alarm system, and bullet-resistant glass or film for exits and entrances. The legislature also made bleeding control stations mandatory on every campus. Cheryl Mercedes investigated how school districts are rolling out kits and training.
Before the first bell of the school year rang in Santa Fe, new teachers and staff were taught a very important lesson.
Okay, the number one cause of preventable death after an injury is bleeding.
Santa Fe ISD Chief Ruben Espinoza teaches new hires how to stop the bleed. It's a course on how to render immediate medical aid to wounded students before trained professionals arrive.
Like in the Uvalde incident, what happened? There's a lot of people that bled out, right?
Every classroom in Santa Fe ISD is equipped with what's known as a lockdown bucket. Chief Espinoza says it includes everything a teacher would need to treat a wounded student.
This is what you're going to find in your Stop the Bleed kit.
The state passed a law in January of 2020 requiring all schools to have bleed control stations and train staff how to use them. KHOU 11 Investigates surveyed the 10 largest school districts in Greater Houston to find out how many kits are on each campus, where they are located, and how often teachers are trained. Turns out the number of kits kept at school varies greatly by district. Houston ISD, the largest school district in the state, has 1,200 kits district-wide. Katy and Clear Creek ISDs store 8 kits at each of its campuses. Fort Bend keeps 2 kits at its high schools, 1 at elementary and middle schools. Conroe has 3 kits at its high schools and middle schools, 2 at its elementary schools. Klein ISD has 120 throughout the district. Cypress Fairbanks has kits in all of its AEDs. The amount depends on the school size. Aldine ISD and Montgomery ISD have at least 1 kit on every campus. Humboldt didn't give us their numbers. Most school districts host training at least once a year as part of their annual district training. They are taught by course-certified school nurses, school resource officers, and/or medical professionals.
See this red tab on here?
In Santa Fe, it's Chief Espinoza's job.
That first pull is the most important pull, okay? You want to get it as tight as you can.
Teachers also learn how to use gauze to pack a wound and stop the bleed.
Sácalo. Okay, con dos manos. Sí.
It's a skill that will go far beyond their classrooms.
Not just from an active shooter situation, but just in general, because anyone can get hurt at any particular time.
It's easy. I just hope I never have to use it.
Districts are also required to offer Stop the Bleed training to students in 7th grade and higher, but they are not required to take it. Most school districts offer it online or as part of a health course.
In the 5 years since Santa Fe, we've talked about other mass shootings in Texas, in El Paso, in Odessa, in Uvalde. All of them hit too close to home for survivors, creating, as Marcelino Benito reported, an ever-growing collective of Texans devastated by gun violence.
Life-changing, yeah, completely.
This week, 4 years ago, Rhonda Hart was in the midst of unimaginable pain. She lost her daughter, Kimberly, inside the halls of Santa Fe High, one of 10 killed that May morning.
I know exactly what these families are feeling. I call it the blur. And they're going to be going through probably physical pain. They're not going to be able to sleep. They're not going to be able to eat. They're going to be crying all the time. It's going to be awful. It's going to be absolutely dreadful.
The tragedy that unfolded in Uvalde.
It does trigger you.
Reignites the pain and trauma that never fully healed after losing Kimberly.
I feel very much like a duck right now. I've been using that analogy. I'm cool and collected on the outside, and then underneath I'm paddling like crazy and just mad as hell.
Anger because it happened again.
It's lather, rinse, and repeat as far as mass shootings go.
She worries about the communities and families that will come next if nothing changes this time.
Parents should never, ever have to bury their kids or lay their kids to rest.
Rhonda says what happened in Santa Fe forever changed that small town, forever altered her own life, and it will change Uvalde. Now her mission to honor her daughter by fighting for gun control and school safety, hoping to spare others the pain she lives with every single day.
People won't understand the pain that this is until it happens to them, and I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
In Santa Fe, Marcelino Benito, KHOU 11 News.
Rhonda Hart is a vocal supporter of gun control, a pretty familiar face in Austin, where she and parents of other school shooting victims lobbied the legislature for change for years.
We had to come up here damn near every week, and it shouldn't have to be this way. If these laws would have been enacted when Santa Fe happened, then we wouldn't be here. Instead, they chose to do nothing, and now my son is dead because of that.
Just days after the mass shooting in Allen, Texas, a House committee signed off on a bill that would raise the minimum age to buy certain semi-automatic guns, sending it to the full House for a vote. But then lawmakers let the deadline to get the vote on the House calendar pass, effectively killing the bill. 5 years since Santa Fe High School lost 8 students and 2 teachers. Some changes have been made to improve campus safety and mass shooter training. But many of those left behind say there is still a long way to go. Along with the push for changes to Texas gun laws, they're waiting for a trial for the suspect accused of this devastating crime to face justice. As they mark May 18th for another year, the community comes together to heal, to support, and to honor the memory of the victims.
What our community has experienced is something that no one would want to face in a lifetime. We are all suffering, we are all grieving, we are all questioning, but it's important that we do not do this alone. We need to lean on each other for strength.
Thank you for joining us for this KHOU 11 Plus special. This is just scraping the surface of our coverage of the Santa Fe High School shooting. If you'd like to watch more, you can watch this special, digging into the tragedy that cast the small Texas town into the national spotlight. Or if you want to be inspired, KHOU 11 Sports was with the Santa Fe football team the week leading up to their first game after the shooting. The sights and sounds, emotions, and results of that game helped the city return to a sense of normalcy. You can see it for yourself in Santa Fe Strong.